Okay, so Chris, I'm going to film they're called MWMs, mobilizations with movement. They're actually created, this whole category of mobilizations was created by a New Zealand physio called Brian Mulligan. And in Australia, you'll probably find physios that have done Mulligan training. Your particular problem when you're riding your bike is that your lumbar spine doesn't flex all that well. And that's why I want to get objective data from you as far as all the curves and the flexion and extension range of motion is concerned. Now, Mike is our model here. So Mike, go ahead, bend down, touch your toes. Now, as he goes down, he's actually got pretty good flexion. Basically, I'm looking at whether there's a convex shape through here, and he is pretty good. Come back up. But when you are on your bike, we don't see that. Go ahead, bend down again. What we see is a lot of flexion occurring up in the upper thoracic. And then this bit, you can actually, there's a section here and here and here about L2, L3, L4, where your spinous processes don't even stick out when you're on your bike. And they are sticking out up here, and that tells me that you're not flexing at all. In fact, you're stuck in extension from about L1 to about L4 or L5, basically through most of the lumbar spine. Okay, so what we do about it, come back up. It's pretty easy. You're going to have to teach someone to do this to you, and in order to teach it, you've got to learn how to do it to someone else first. So find someone that needs mobilizing into lumbar flexion. Generally, it's not a good idea to do this to someone that has a flat low back because they've already got too much lumbar flexion. They need mobilizing into extension, which I'll show you in a minute, but your particular problem is flexion. So I'm going to take my forearm like this and kind of put it in front of his belly, and then you find the L5. So remember, the spine, the PSIS are at level with S2, so there's the two posterior superior iliac spines. Right in the middle is S2, about half an inch or so above that, 3/4 of an inch maybe with this guy because he's tall. You'll find the first prominent interspace, which is always going to be L5, S1, and I'm going to place my thumb kind of underneath the tip of the L5 spinous. So if you imagine these are the spinous processes, my thumb's going to go, if that's L5, that's L4, that's L3, my thumb's going to go here, and as he bends forward, I'm going to encourage that spinous process to go up and over. So there's the first interspace, there's the L5 spinous, so go ahead, bend forwards, that's it, good, and come back up, and again, good, and again. So you can see that as he bends over, I'm following the movement like that, and you only need to do 2 or 3 at that segment and then move up to the next one. So that was L5, so now I'll go to L4. Okay, go ahead. That's it. Again. Good. And again. Okay. And then I move up to the next segment. So you need someone to do this at L5, L4, L3, L2 and L1. Don't go above L1, you don't need it. Okay. Now, once you've done those, you should do Mackenzie push-ups. So Mike, go ahead, just drop on the floor and do some Mackenzies. Okay, so lie flat down. Your wrists go under your shoulders. There you go. And then breathe out as you push up. Good. And just let your feet relax like that. And then inhale as you go down. Just some dynamic Mackenzie push-ups. And you always want to do this because with even someone that's got a healthy spine and no previous history of disc herniation, when you do these MWMs into flexion, you're going to push disc fluid posteriorly. So it's always a good idea to do some extensions afterwards. Okay, good. All right. Okay, and then you can have another go. So stand back up. But first what I would do is look to see if anything had improved. So go ahead, bend forward, touch your toes. And if I now see that there's plenty of flexion through here, remember he's not a good example because he has flexion already. But the person, you need to train the person doing this to you to identify what looks like normal flexion and what doesn't. Right now yours definitely does not. You're kind of stuck in extension as you bend forwards, and then there's tons of flexion going on from kind of L1 or T12 and up. So let's say it hadn't improved very much. Okay, come back up. So what we do is we do another back. So this time I'm going to film it at a slightly different angle, so it faces the door over there. and move in front of you just a little bit. Okay, face that way. There we go. So you get a slightly different perspective, and you need to learn to do this with either hand. So there's the PSIS, that's S2. Keep coming up until you feel the first interspace, and then the first spinous process above that is L5. So go ahead, bend forwards. Good. So you're right hooking under the spinous process and encouraging the spinous process to move up, over and down. Drop your head a little bit, Mike, when you go forwards. Okay, good. So that was 3 or 4. So now I'll come up to L4. There it is. Go ahead. I'm really not using a lot of effort. I'm just gently encouraging the segmental motion that's occurring anyway. Okay, good. And again, he doesn't really need this, so I'm not going to go all the way up through his lumbar spine, but you need to do L5, L4, L3, L2 and L1. And you imagine these are the spinous processes in his back. I'm basically, there's L5 right here, so my thumb's here, and as he bends forward I'm making more motion occur between L5 and the sacrum than normal. And then when I get here, which is L4, what I'm doing with my thumb as he bends forward, I'm basically making L4 and L5 articulate much more than they do normally, and then I can do the same at the L3-4 motion segment. So it's a great segmental mobilizing technique, much less indiscriminate than just kind of bending over and touching your toes. Then you don't really know which segments the movement's coming from. Okay, so again, you would do some more Mackenzies after that, and then you'd reassess this again to see if it had improved. And then one other thing we should do, once you've done all of those things, it's very helpful to do a stretch for the erector spinae. So let me put this right here, Mike. And you're going to put your left leg up on here, and then just kind of do that to get a stretch through the lumbar erectors. So you do this after you've done the MWMs. Do at least, I mean, I doubt that you'll get away with just one bout. You'll probably need to do at least 2 or 3 bouts before the person treating you can see much difference. But this is a good way of getting a good strong stretch through here. So now switch legs, Mike, and this time face that way. So your right leg's going up on there, so we get a side view. So just use a fairly tall table. This is actually a little too tall. A massage table is ideal. And then try and get the movement into your lumbar spine as much as possible. And yeah, see how he tucked his butt under? That's very, very helpful. And you get a good strong stretch in the erector spinae. And most of the stretch will be on the right side now because the right leg is up. And you can do this for 30-second holds. If you tolerate that well, go up to a minute at a time, even 2 minutes at a time. But always do Mackenzie push-ups after you've done this because of all the posterior leaching of disc fluid. Okay, I think that will do. So you have MWMs followed by Mackenzies, and then you have the erector spinae stretch followed by Mackenzies. All right, that's enough for now.